Hey guys, okay, so now this video is for The Hate You Give, um, the final four chapters, chapter 23, 24, 25, and 26. Okay, so bear with me as I pull up my notes. Okay, so chapter 23. Seven tells Star that he will help her. If we remember, the riots have started, okay? So Seven tells Star that he's going to help her cope however she chooses to with the news of the grand jury, okay? Um, she really wants to protest and riot. And Chris, who, if we remember, is with them, Chris says, well, how is that going to help? Now, this, I'm going to stop right now. This is something that I think a lot of people ask this question regarding the riots. I know since I live here in Philly, there's been a lot of riots since really since the beginning of the virus. And I only say that because, you know, the virus kind of started the same time as the George Floyd incident. And at this point, honestly, my memory is pretty muddled about which happened first. But regardless, um, you know, if we think of that, or most recently here in Philly, the Walter Wallace incident, but not, there haven't been so many riots with that. But regardless, you know, these riots and protests happen. Protesting is fine. The riots, you know, you don't got to shut down Target, guys. There's no need. I need my Target. Anyway, and a lot of people say, like, how does this help? Like, what is this doing besides just destroying property? And I think that's, you know, that's what Chris is really trying to get at is what is it doing? How is it helping? Okay, a protest is much more beneficial, much more helpful than a riot. So Chris asks how that's going to help, and Star implores him to empathize with her because she has been harassed and threatened over the fact that she's the witness, and says, you know, like, I, I know you don't get it, but even if you don't agree with me, please just try to understand. Okay, so the kids go to drop Lyric off at Seven's grandma's house, and Kenya. So we remember it's, if we go back real fast, um, Kenya, Star, Chris, and Seven all went to go pick up Devonte at King and Aisha's house. Okay, and he was beaten up pretty bad. So they picked up Devonte and Lyric and left. Okay, so Kenya says that she's going to stay with Star just in case Aisha shows up to them. And Chris says that he also wants to stay, but he starts to realize as they get to these protests, he starts to realize that, you know, like how his whiteness really makes him stick out and how out of place he is because he's white. And only now realizes the reality that Star and Seven live in at Williamson Prep. So, you know, it's a very interesting internal conflict or transfer of internal conflict. Chris doesn't really conflict with it because we don't, you know, we're not given that chance to see that side. We're given Star's, you know, point of view. But anyway, so people are throwing tear gas, they're shouting, they're rapping along with, they're all, you know, they're rapping together to NWA's Fuck the Police. And it's funny because what's funny about this is that Chris is rapping along and they're all like, look at this white boy rap. But they also make mention of how he bleeps out or, you know, omits the use of the N word, and they say, as he should. This is something that has a huge, I think now in today's world, outside of the novel, this is a very controversial thing because a lot of, when I have this discussion in class with students, a lot of people say, yeah, it's just a song lyric, but it's not. It's still the word, right? So why is it that we can say it in a song, but we can't say it in real life? And that debate starts, and that's fun because I get to sit back and not have to say anything. But anyway, so it's just, you know, it's something to think about how different cultures are, even if we're growing up at the same time or being raised in the same time. It doesn't, you know, these certain things are not spoken about enough, maybe. Okay, like our colloquialisms, our idioms, our use of language is not really discussed in terms of what's appropriate and what's not all the time. You know, we're not told until we do it to not do it. So like if I'm 5 years old, like my son, and I start cursing, I don't know that that's bad until I did it. But shouldn't we be saying you can't say these things before it happens? Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. Okay, so as Star is kind of looking around at the riots, the protesting, she finds it really cathartic, but then realizing that they're destroying stores and that this destruction is not what she wanted. That as much as she's angry and as much as she wants to really release this anger, what she wanted was not destruction. Okay, so as the violence escalates, cops show up in riot gear. There's a joke between the kids as they drive back to Big Mav's store because they decide to leave and go there. And you know, they're also very impressed right now still with Chris's rapping ability. So they jokingly ask him, you know, is mac and cheese a side dish or a full entree? And he says that it's an entree, and they're like, oh my God, no, it's a side. So that's kind of funny. So then Chris asks something that is interesting because, again, it's something that's not really discussed. And I strongly feel that a lot of things to deal with different races and different cultures should be discussed more. We shouldn't be so afraid of these things. Okay. So, because whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm sorry. So Chris asks, why do Black kids have such strange names? And Seven says that it is all about perspective. Okay, so he goes, let me just pull out my book real fast. You know, a lot of parents give very, you know, intense meaning behind their choice of names. We'll deserve better, all night, for real. Hold on. Oh, that's why I'm in the wrong chapter. Oops. Gotta find the real macaroni and cheese. So, okay, so here it is. Okay. So he says, why do some Black people give their kids odd names? I mean, look at you guys' names. They're not normal. So my name normal, Devontae says. I don't know what you're talking about. Man, you named after a dude from Jadesi, Seven says. And you named after a number. What's your middle name? 8? Anyway, Chris, Devontae's got a point. What makes his name or our names any less normal than yours? Who or what defines normal to you? If my pops were here, he'd say you've fallen into the trap of the white standard. So Chris kind of stammers. He's like, maybe normal wasn't the right word. Star says no. So he says maybe uncommon. And Devontae goes, I know about 3 other Devontaes in the neighborhood, though. So Seven says, yes, it's about perspective. Most names white people think are unusual have meanings in various African languages. Sorry. So it kind of, you know, at this point, it kind of stops. But he does, you know, he makes his point of it has to do really with culture and, you know, respecting culture, respecting tradition, and respecting language. So anyway, I apologize again for my, you know, next rant. So chapter 24. Okay. So Seven's car runs out of gas and they actually end up finding Miss Ofra, who's leading a protest as she's standing on top of a car with her megaphone. Ms. Ofra reassures the kids that, you know, because they say to her that Justice for Justice is still standing, and that's great because they had to go a different way. She says it's fine even if it wasn't, because it's just a building and there's more important things. She then leads Star to the front of the protest and hands her the megaphone. This is a huge monumental moment in the novel because up until this point, Star has really struggled to find her voice. So now we're handing her something where she has to use her voice. Okay, we're handing her a megaphone, so it's very symbolic. So as she stammers for a little bit, because that's, you know, again, showing her struggle with finding her voice, she introduces herself and says that she's the witness and calls 115 a criminal. She shouts that the police don't care about Black people, and until they do, the protesting will just continue. She also shouts that, you know, everybody wants to talk about how Khalil died, and everybody knows how he died. He was shot by a cop, but nobody wants to talk about how he lived. So let's talk about that instead. Okay, so while she's doing this whole speech, the cops are kind of giving her a countdown saying, like, you need to leave, you all need to disperse. She finishes her speech and the cops throw tear gas. Star is really in the moment, so she picks it up and just throws it back at them. However, it had already, started to go off, so she got affected by it, of course. Where someone named Goon stops to pick them up, and there's a white guy with a cameraman, I'm sorry, who Star recognizes as a news anchor. The guy, the news anchor asks if she wants to comment, and she says that none of this makes any sense. She watches her neighborhood, descend into utter chaos as she is driven in the back of this pickup truck to the store. She gets there and is instructed to get milk for her and her friends for their eyes. That's going to help, the tear gas. Star and Seven check their phones and find that Lisa has called and texted them multiple times. So Seven goes into the office, the store's office, to use that phone to call Lisa back so that, that she has proof that they're at the store. And as he's doing that, a Molotov cocktail flies into the store. And now we're into 25. Okay, so fire erupts in the store. The kids are trying to go to the back door to open it, but it's locked. So they call out to Mr. Lewis because they can't get out of the front of the store because it's all engulfed in flames. So Mr. Lewis calls Mav. He runs to the door with the keys. And as he's opening the door, Uncle Carlos and Lisa arrive just as the kids exit the store. So great. Everyone is safe, but the store in Mr. Lewis's barbershop burned to the ground. And as they're all watching, the two buildings burn, King drives up with a cigarette in his mouth, indicating that it was him who did this. So Big Mav threatens King. King kind of laughs. It's just like, yeah, okay. So Mr. Lewis tells the cops that are on the scene to arrest King for starting the fire. But King rebuts, saying that Mr. Lewis inhaled too much smoke and he's clearly confused. So Big Mav backs him up. The cops ask if anybody around saw King do it. And at this point, this is another, pivotal moment in the novel. A bunch of neighbors, multiple neighbors, step forward saying that, yes, they did see him throw the cocktail. So cops order King to the ground. They arrest him. Lisa confronts Star as to why she threw tear gas at a cop. And Star's just like, no, I was just throwing it back, Mom. It's fine. Everything's fine. She then says that the decision that the grand jury made wasn't right because, she's very emotional. And Lisa reminds her that things can still go wrong despite having done everything right. And that's essentially like the moral of the story. So at this point now, if we remember, Uncle Carlos is there and he sees Devante. And remember, Devante has been living with Uncle Carlos, kind of in hiding, and grounds him for leaving. And Devante is like, you mean you're not going to kick me out for leaving? And he's like, no, we love you, so you're just grounded. And he was like, oh, okay. So Uncle Carlos tells them all that, King is not going to be in jail very long on this arson charge. He will, he'll get out fairly quickly. So Devante kind of says, well, will he stay in there longer if someone, said where he hides all the drugs? And so Uncle Carlos is like, if you're willing to be a witness, we'll protect you. And yes, that will keep him locked up longer. So potential for the next book, who knows? Anyway, chapter 26. Okay. So the next morning, Miss Ofer calls Star's house to apologize for putting her in such a dangerous position. Star receives various text messages from her friends. So she receives one from Maya, who's just like, oh my God, girl, I saw you on TV. I don't know why I did that, but she's super excited about it. She thinks it's like the bee's knees. Chris texts to say that like he's grounded, but he has no regrets for what he did. And surprisingly, Haley texts with an apology to Star and says that she wants their friendship back. But Star realizes by asking, like, what are you apologizing for? That Haley is still not taking any responsibility for what she said. Okay, the fried chicken comment, the saying that, Khalil would have died anyway. She's taking no responsibility for those things. And so this makes Star delete Haley's number and say, like, nothing's ever going to be the same between us. So because they had the Carters had officially moved into their house already at this point, Star asks Big Mav if his roses are doing okay. If we remember at the beginning of the novel, we are pointed to the roses being very important to Big Mav. So these roses are very symbolic of endurance and strength and change. Okay, so they were able to survive Garden Heights, so they're going to be able to survive where they live now as long as they can survive the change. Okay, so they're changing the soil, and Big Mav calls it a reset. So he's alluding to, I'm sorry, he's more like drawing the parallel between the roses and themselves. Okay, where the hell is where am I on my notes? Okay. There's also a discussion that the Carters are now having on how you don't have to live in a certain area to help change it and fix it, because Star says, like, was it wise for us to have left Garden Heights? How are we going to change it if we live here? So that's why that comment was made. So the family goes to the store to meet with the insurance agent, per Sakani's suggestion. And while they're there, Mr. Lewis tells Mav that he's going to retire. He's kind of like, F this, I'm out. Okay, and here you can have the barbershop to expand your store. But the only condition is that you have to put a picture of Dr. King next to your picture of Huey Newton. So it's kind of funny because you kind of see, their rivalry really come together. Okay, Kenya shows up at the store and tells Star how proud she is of her for speaking up, when earlier we remember that Kenya had kind of called her a coward and fake for not standing up because of her fear, essentially, of her white friends. And she also says that King beat Aisha up pretty badly and that Aisha was in the hospital, but that goes nowhere. That thought, they don't go visit her. So I don't really know why that's important. But anyway, Kenya also apologizes for calling Seven her brother and acknowledges now that he is their brother. So this is important only because Star says every time Kenya says my brother, she's like, he's our brother. I don't know why you keep saying that. She's a little whiny about it. So this is there's a lot of change that has happened now by the end of the novel. Now, if you saw the film, okay, you'll know that this is not how it ended in the film. In the film, it was at the store while it's burning down. King shows up, and Big Mav just so happens to have his Glock tucked into the back of his pants. So he whips it out to threaten King. King whips his out to threaten him. I think that they got into a fist fight. I can't completely remember how the gun ends up on the ground. But I'm sorry. So I know what I messed up. King takes the gun out first because he wants to essentially kill Star because she didn't die in the fire. And Big Mav goes to take his Glock out of the back of his pants, but Sakani got to it first. Now, if we remember, Sakani's only about like 7 years old. He's very small, okay? Sakani takes it out and points it at King in the film. This is in the film. And this is a huge thing. And there's a voiceover of Star saying, this is what thug life means. All of this hate Sakani has absorbed and seen and witnessed. And now he is going to carry it on. He's going to perpetuate it because he is now the one holding the gun against an adult. And that this makes everybody realize, oh my God, we have to stop this. So that's essentially the end of the movie. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the novel. I hope it wasn't too difficult to get through. But anyway, that's it. That's chapters 23 through 26. If you guys have questions, let me know. And I guess we'll talk about it more later. I don't know. Bye, guys.